November has been a very interesting month, even to the beginning of, we are still in the beginning of December, but that's been so interesting. Top officers in Nigeria right now are being sentenced to prison for contempt of court. How do you see that development?
Well, firstly, I would say it's thumbs up for our judiciary. You know, knowing the history, Nigeria checkered history, military regime, and then the transition to democracy in 1999. The judiciary has always been at the backbench. I've always been the whipping boy of the three arms of government, the executive, the legislature, then the judiciary. So to get to a point in our democracy and in Nigeria where a judge of a high court can stand to his vows, it's an oath of office, and do that which is right, I think it's good news for Nigeria. That's on the first part of it. And then on the other hand, we look at this. I personally see it from the angle that what does this portend? Within a space of about 1 month and few days, I think the first was 28th of October, the EFCC chairman, Justice Chizoboji of the Federal High Court of the Abuja FCT High Court, gave that order for contempt and committed him to prison. Of course, the order was set aside some days later. Then, the 29th of November, like you just said, we now see the IG of police. The police hierarchy is saying we have applied for the order to be set aside. It's not yet set aside. These are top appointees of government. And 2 days later, on the 1st of December, we now see the Chief of Army Staff, General Yahaya, and not just him, another top shot in the army, the Training and Doctrine Commandant, General Stevenson Olabanji also. And then you see a judge of the Niger State High Court also committing them to prison for contempt. Now it says something about how our appointed officials and even elected officials treat orders of court. So I will stop here for now. So for one, it's cheery news that our courts have come up to say, yes, this is wrong, and I'm going to pronounce, no matter who you are, no matter how highly placed you are, knowing our history. And on the other hand, what does this say about our government, about our officials, about the people? It means orders were made and they were not obeyed. For the court to now come subsequently to say, you didn't obey this order, I'm going to commit it for contempt. That is something that is not also cheery.
Okay, all right. We've seen them being charged for contempt of court. So I'm going to direct this question to Niyi Aborishade, who is joining us from Ibadan. All these officers that were charged, what they were charged with, it did not happen when they were in office. We have the one of the IGP dating back to 1994. He was not in office then when this officer that was in question, when he was wrongfully dismissed from office. Same thing with the one of the Chief of Army Staff. It was when the previous Chief of Army Staff was there. But then we have them bearing the brunt. Should this be allowed?
Thank you very much. Yes, they were not in the office. They now had the notice of the proceedings. They were informed that there is an allegation regarding contempt of court, and they should have been adequately represented. I don't see why the general cannot obey simple law, but this is the antecedent of the military. They are not used to obeying law from bloody civilians, as they used to say. And that's the problem. And I think the president, current president, set the precedent. When it was ordered to release Dasuki from detention, it took him 3 or 4 years before he released him. And that's the problem. And so other officers, they learn this from him, but it shouldn't be so. In any society, the rule of law is the foundation, is the bedrock of any progressive society. The moment those who are at the top refuse to obey the law, then they are creating problems for the community. The whole system will collapse, because where there is no law, there will be anarchy, there will be lawlessness. Everybody will just be doing what they like. But where there is law, and those who are supposed to uphold the rule of law are the one breaking the law, then they are setting bad precedent. This should change. This should change. The interesting part of it is this. All the judges that made this order, they gave a leeway and escape route for all those people to comply. I even see this as a warning than order, because the moment they comply with the initial order that premeditated the proceedings of the contempt of court, then they have discharged the body. That means that order will not be effective. But still, instead of complying, they are still applying to set aside the order. This is not good for the country. Something has to be done. The rule of law is everyone is equal before the law, and they have to cooperate with the law. Otherwise, the whole system collapses. Everybody will do what he likes, and no one will obey the law anymore, and that's not good. So the president must step in this time around. He is the commander of the chief. All the forces are under him. He must ensure that they obey the order of the court. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm starting to envisage so much to be done by the current, well, whoever is holding any office, and then they are charging them maybe for contempt of court, the one carried out by their predecessor. Would it not be appropriate if the court charged the Chief of Army Staff, the IGP, the EFCC boss that was in power when the contempt took place? Would that not be appropriate?
No. It is the office that have the problem, not an individual per se, because it's the IG. Whosoever be the IG bears the burden now, because even before that contempt of court, they must have had the notice. Don't forget that government is continual. Whosoever be in the office has a duty to carry out the order. What I'm trying to say is that even before this order was made, the IGP or the Chief of Army Staff, they were aware that there is a contempt of court, and they failed to send somebody to represent them and explain their position. This is a total disregard or flagrant disregard to the rule of law. Because before this proceeding started, I'm talking of the contempt of court itself, they were aware, they were served, and they are the one that is now holding the battle. So they should have sent a lawyer to represent them and explain their position. This was not done because they do not have intention to carry out the order anyway. They have total disregard for the rule of law, and they should not be excused. Whosoever be in power, for instance, if I'm a contractor, if the government holds me now and another government comes in, because government is a continuum, the new government has an obligation to pay a contractor. Similarly, whatever order or whatever procedures that have been going on before the new regime still have obligation to meet that order. And they are failed to do so on this occasion. So it doesn't matter whether the predecessor or the successor, whoever be in power, he has a duty, and he is duly informed of the content of the procedures. So failure to follow that order is a total disregard for the rule of law and for the constitution of Nigeria that even created the position that they are sitting on. And it's not good.
Yeah, all right, thank you very much. And now to Tolu Babaleye. I gather that this is the first time we are experiencing this in Nigeria's history. Like, we've not heard of court suing, court charging IGP, EFCC boss, Chief of Army Staff. These are the people that you would think have immunity, and we have this being carried out the first time in the history of Nigeria. What do you think is responsible for this boldness we have seen in the judiciary in recent days?
Well, thank you. Nigeria is under democratic rule, and in democracy, the highest organ in democracy is law. And when you talk about law, you talk about judiciary. What you are witnessing is due to the fact that we are in democracy. And it is still like this because Nigerian democracy is still in progress. In the same climb, by now the Chief of Army Staff, the EFCC's chairman or whoever are supposed to be behind bars. But because Nigerian democracy is a work in progress, that is why we are still at this level. I commend the judiciary for taking the bull by the horn at this time. But the problem we have now with all this order is who will bail the cat. If you now give an order to a policeman to arrest the IG, is it the inspector or the police constable that will arrest his overlord IG, or who in the military, or is it the police that will come and arrest the chief of army staff, or who is going to arrest the EFCC's, chairman? These are the problems we still have with our democracy. I want to propose for, an amendment of our constitution to place the court over and above everything. Let whatever court says, let whatever order the court gives be implemented. There should be a special police created by the constitution to deal with this kind of situation, so that whenever a court gives an order, it will be implemented. It's not that a court will give an order, the person against whom order is giving will go to the next day, cap in hand, and be say, I want to apply for the order to be varied. The issue is obey before complain. Even when a court order is bad, however incredibly bad it may be, you first of all obey before you now say, let me complain about it. But we are not yet in Canaan, but we have left Egypt. That is what I know. We'll get to the promised land. With what the judiciary is doing now, they have already, judiciary is already awake to its responsibility. So they are already saying we are no longer in the military era. This is democracy, where rule of law must prevail. And for rule of law to prevail, every order given by court of law must be obeyed. So, but we have to work on the appropriate organ that we make sure that order of courts are obeyed. Like in this situation, the question now, having given all these orders, who will bail the cat? Who is going to arrest the IGP? Who is going to arrest the chief of army staff and the 2 senior army officers? Who is going to arrest the FCC chairman? Those are the questions. And it is part of our law that the court should not give an order whose execution will be very difficult. That is the situation in which we find ourselves in Nigeria. And Nigerian democracy being work in progress, we will get there one day. But all in all, I want to commend the judiciary for waking up and for saying that it's either you bend or you break as far as democracy and rule of law is concerned. That's my contribution for now.
Thank you very much for that. And what you've raised a very brilliant point. Who is going to bail the cat? And I hope this would not be an issue of having the bigger bark than the bite, because like you said, they've already given the order, arrest the IGP, arrest the chief of army staff. Who is going to do it? Really, that is a big question. And I have to ask you, what do you propose, or how do you even propose that should be carried out? He has given the suggestion of the constitution creating a security, or a police that will be able to carry out such orders. But for right now, what we have in ground, what is obtainable for us?
Yes, like I said earlier, what we are witnessing is a hangover, absolute hangover from the military era. That's the truth. The rule of force, brute force, not respect for the rule of law. And that is the reason up till now, the Army High Command has not issued a statement, either saying they got the order made by the Niger State High Court, or denying same, or explaining something. That shows you for me, it is the disdain, the disdain at which they hold Nigerians and the judiciary. And because of what we call force, the brute force, just like the last speaker said, is it the police that is going to arrest the IG? Is there a police inspector or a sergeant? Okay, is there a policeman now that will go to arrest the chief of army staff? But that should not be. Like he said, in Senate climes, these men should not be in office as of today. Okay? But because we are not in a sane climb, not to talk of Senate climb, we see these things and life just goes on. So who will bail the cat? If you go to arrest him, you won't even get a kilometer near any of these officers to say you're going to arrest them. And that speaks volumes about what we practice in Nigeria as democracy. The international community is watching. People are taking note. And I'm going to use this opportunity to call on civil society. such things, when we get to this level, the judiciary has for once risen up to back. We shouldn't let them down. We should come up, we should arrange. It's not about personal interest. If you as the chief of army staff, if you don't have a personal interest in whatever order was made against you, then you should allow that order to be executed. So with the IG of police, that of the IG has to do with the order of a court to reinstate a former senior police officer way back in 1993. And in 2011, that judgment was revisited.
Yes.
And now in 2022, how many years are we talking about? Now they have gone
That's
to
like 28 years ago, 29 years ago.
Now they've applied to set aside that order. And then they're saying, one, the IG wasn't the IG then. That is balderdash, in my view. Oh, sure, because the government, like one of the speakers said, is a continuum. You inherit whatever the previous office holder kept. It's the bag and the baggage, you go with it. The perks of the office, you are enjoying it. So you cannot at the same time say you're not aware. And by the way, what the court is saying is do the right thing. That's just the bottom line of what all these orders are about. That we can't continue. It can't be impunity as usual. It can't be business as usual. So to say now who is going to arrest these men, who will bear the cat, it's a big question. It's a big question. But civil society, rights and well-meaning Nigeria should rise up and begin to hold this government to account. The presidency should also wade in and say, come, these things have to be done right. It's not when protests and placards start and then you see policemen come out to say you didn't get the order to protest. No, but that's how it's going to be very soon, because the judiciary is now leading the way to say, I don't know who you are, but this is what the law that I swore to defend provides for, and this is what I'm going to do.
Okay, all right. But if we look at the way the arm of government in Nigeria is, the judiciary is always being treated as the last born no one pays attention to, even if they give order. Because the contempt of court, disobedience to court order, it is something that has been going on for a very long time. And now that it seems that the judiciary is awakening and calling these people to attention to what they've done wrong, they are calling them to pay for their past deeds, so to speak. So how is it guaranteed that this same order will not again be violated? I want to direct this question to Ni Aborishade. It seems to risk not to risk going in the same circle over and over and over again. What are the chances that this same order that high courts have given out will be carried out, or it won't be carried out?
Now, let me first answer the question. The last speaker mentioned something, but it didn't complete it. Who will bear the count? The president is the head of the executive by way of hierarchy in government. He has a duty. When he took oath of office, he promised to obey the constitution and to follow the constitution. Now, where there is a kind of lawlessness, where the COAS, the Chief of Army Staff, and the Inspector General of Police refuse to obey the order, the president has a duty to order the arrest, to tell them, to order somebody to arrest them. It's not about who is inspector. All what they need to hear is from the president. They should go and arrest them and put them in detention. And then they can find proper action, either for bail or whatever. But where the president remains silent on this matter, is not helping. He is in charge of the executive, the whole executive, the police, or the army. So he should call them to order, to comply. And if any one of them refuses to comply, then he has them to resign or dismiss such a leader who refuses to resign. If the Inspector General of Police refuses to resign or to follow the order of the court, then he should sack him from the duty. The same thing he can do for COS. Other people are there that can take over. So something has to be done. Unless there's a drastic change, this kind of thing will continue to happen, to disobey the order of the court. It is becoming unbecoming in our society that some people think they are so big that they are above the law of the land. This should not continue. The president and the National Assembly also, they have duty. They should invite such people, the COS, the Chief of Army Staff, and the Inspector General of Police, they should invite them to the assembly and ask them why they refuse to obey the law of the land. It is this law that binds every one of us together, all the citizens of this country. The moment some people refuse to carry out the order of the court, they are sending messages to the society. We will see that there will be total breakdown of law. So something has to be done. Even before the election period, the president, the National Assembly, they have to do something. This is not something that should be swept under the carpet. If something has to be done, they have to invite them. They have to ensure, even while they are making the application, I don't know why they should not be behind the bar at this time. The order was about 3 or 4 days ago. Nothing has been done. No arrest has been effected. And still, they are still planning to set the order aside. Very soon, we will hear that they have set the order aside. That should not be. Somebody who was accused of representing, he was conducting the appeal, but the judge found him guilty before the appeal, and he's now in prison. Now, while he was still conducting his appeal. So the same thing should go for the Inspector General of Police and the Chief of Army Staff. The law that applies to someone that steals a fowl should apply to the Chief of Army Staff or Inspector General of Police who is found guilty of contempt of the court. The offense of contempt of the court is offense of strict liability because it is on law that society has. It is the anchor that holds this right together. And for this alone, the president or the National Assembly, they have it to ensure that the order of the court is properly carried out by these two gentlemen, the Inspector General of Police and the Chief of Army Staff, and anybody who was ordered by the court to carry out something or other things. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for that. And it seems from the point you've made, it seems both the legislative, judiciary, and executive arm of government, the three of them must have this synergy. They must cooperate for us to have the rule of law being respected. Now, I want to ask Tolu Babalaye this question. How would you rate the cooperation between the legislative, the executive, and judiciary arm of government that would be able to uphold rule of law in Nigeria?
Well, as it is now, the executive is seeing themselves as the principal, while others are just junior partners in the arm of government, the separation of power as we have it in Nigeria of today. Because it is the executive that controls the budget. And when they propose the budget, they also propose budget for judiciary. They propose budget for executive. We are all in this country. When the issue of judicial autonomy came up, for a very long time, most of the governors, even up to now, some of the governors have not even allowed judicial autonomy in their various states. So when you look at the situation of the country, the executive arm of government look at themselves as a senior partner, whereas it is supposed to be three arms of government of equal proportion to back on what is called check and balances. And the executive is to execute the law and the policies. The legislature is to make the law, while judiciary is to interpret and punish whoever goes against what is to be executed. That is the synergy that is supposed to be. But in Nigeria, the executive lord it over everybody. They see themselves as first among equal, which is not supposed to be. And the only way by which the rule of law can become fully effective in Nigeria is for executive to know its limitation, for the judiciary to know its own powers, and for the legislature to know that it can act as check and balances on all the powers. So that is the only time that our system, as far as rule of law, will work. As it is today, just like the last speaker said, that is the president that is supposed to order the arrest of the IG, the Chief of Army Staff, and EFCC chairman. When you look at it, the president himself is guilty of contempt of court. I listened to your to the introductory paragraphs. Introductory speech of Mr. Borishade, my learned friend of in the studio at Ibadan there, where he laid a very beautiful foundation that even the president himself refused to obey court order when the court order the release of Dasuki, who was charged with a lot of things that has not been proved up till now, up till tomorrow. But it took like 4 years. We don't know what happened. Maybe because the man wanted to die in prison. That is why they quickly, release him. His release was no longer based on court order. This is not supposed to be. Where the head is disobeying the court, what do you want other subordinates, like the IG, like the Inspector General of Police, to do? So it is time. We have the opportunity now that the Constitution is being amended for clauses, serious clauses, punitive clauses, that will make it immediate impeachment for whoever, for the President of Nigeria, if he refuses, or any of his executives, or any of his officials refuse to obey a court order within 48 hours. Except we go, we amend our constitution and make the judiciary potent and alert to their responsibility. We may not have it the way we want it. Because a country in which judiciary is relegated to the background goes nowhere, because there will be impunity, there will be rule of force, and the person who believes that he has upper hand over his brother will always subjugate him. All we needed is to amend our constitution, make the judiciary very potent, and insert a clause. Let there be a special police to execute a court order, and insert a clause in the constitution that where the president or any of his officials is to pay court order within 48 hours, it should be an impeachable offense against the president. I think with this one, we'll get it right.